Hi folks, and welcome to another card review. This time we're looking at Kenrith, the Returned King. This is a mono-white legendary creature with all 5 color identities, because he has 5 different activated abilities, one for each color mana symbol. Let's begin with talking about his activated abilities. For 1 red mana, all creatures gain trample and haste until end of turn. For 1 green and generic, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. For white and 2, target player gains 5 life. For blue and 3, target player draws a card. For black and 4, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. Before we begin reviewing all of his different activate abilities one by one, we have to mention that his number 4 ability, the blue ability, draws cards for the same amount of mana as Thrasios. Now Thrasios' ability is stronger because it only demands colorless mana, and he gets to scry 1 before the draw. And in this video we are gonna compare Kenrith with Thrasios quite a lot, because they are kinda close to the same style of a commander. They are doing close to the same thing, drawing cards by spending mana, 4 mana to be exactly, and that means that they are building close enough to the same decks. Maybe I should also mention that without the activated ability to draw a card, this commander wouldn't really be valid. In fact, I might actually say the reason we are playing him is because of the 5 color identities and an ability to draw cards from mana. And all the 4 other activated abilities are basically just bonus. Now let's begin with his first ability, his red ability. Now in this game there is a bunch of creatures that will tap for a really high amount of mana, like Bloom Tender, that will tap for Verberg mana if you have permanents of all 5 different colors. Now when you cast Bloom Tender, he's gonna suffer from summoning sickness, and that's a problem. And with an enchantment like Gauntlets of Light, it's an aura. Enchanted creature has white and 2 generic, untap this creature. Now if you have all 5 different colors in play, and if you have these 2 in play, you have infinite mana, and you win the game with your commander and infinite mana. And here is the big reason why the red ability is actually gonna be good here, because you can actually go for this win the moment you put Bloom Tender into play. Normally, you have to cast Bloom Tender, you have to pass turn, and you win when Bloom Tender is no longer suffering from summoning sickness. I can also see a scenario that you and another player is trying to kill a third player with creature beatdown. That actually happens from time to time, that players gang up against another player they view as a problem. And in this very specific situation, if you have enough mana to spend, you can give all creatures trample, and that is gonna help out getting the kill done. Let's proceed to his secondary ability, the ability where we are putting +1/+1 counters onto our creatures. Now, it's always nice to have an ability that you can put your mana into at an opponent's end step if nothing else is happening. The big problem here is that we rather draw cards than put +1/+1 counters onto our creatures. So if nothing is happening and we're in our last opponent's end step, we're gonna activate his blue ability for 4 mana to draw a card instead. However, in a normal control deck, you run a bunch of control cards like Narset's Reversal or other 2-cost control cards. This is the perfect spot to be in. You want to have your commander in play, like a commander like Thrasios or a commander like Kenrith. You want to have 4 mana available, and you want to pass turn, and you want to be at the ready. This is a control deck. Now, if an opponent is doing something, you're gonna interact with them. If they are not doing anything, you're gonna draw a card. In Thrasios' case, you can only draw cards. In Kenrith's case, you can do a little bit more. So, if you actually cast Narset's Reversal, you no longer have 4 mana at the ready, you have 2 mana at the ready. That means that you can actually activate his secondary ability and buff one of your creatures. I've actually been in this kind of situation quite a lot with Thrasios. Suddenly I have to interact with one of my opponents, and therefore I no longer have 4 mana in my last opponent's end step, and I can't draw a card with Thrasios. With Kenrith, I can at least do something. Just like I said previously, it's always nice to have some mana to dump into an ability in your last opponent's end step. The third ability, however, I actually think is the worst. Gain 5 life is only good in very specific beatdown, sluggish, extremely long games where it suddenly becomes a beatdown game, and that very rarely happens. So in the end, I don't think this is an ability that we're gonna activate a lot. In fact, it's gonna be a good ability in 1 in 30 games or so. It's time to talk about his fourth ability, the card drawing ability. Well, we've already talked about it quite a lot. It's the ability that's making him good. It's the ability that's making him valid. But let's pull Thrasios out again and let's actually read Kenrith's ability again. Target player draws a card. You can target your opponents with this ability, and that means that you can deck your opponents. With infinite mana, you will win the game. You can both draw your entire deck and you can kill your opponents with only his ability. Thrasios can't actually do that. Thrasios can only draw his entire deck, and then his deck somehow has to be able to win the game. Kenrith's deck doesn't need to do that. This might sound like a little bit of a meh, does it really matter? It actually matters, because Thrasios actually has to deck slot in a few cards that he can win the game with when he has drawn his entire deck. And Kenrith doesn't need to do that, and that is making Kenrith decks a little bit more open. But I want to mention something. I want to mention Angel's Grace. So when you're killing your opponents by forcing them to draw each card one by one and decking themselves, they actually get priority between all the individual card draws. So if they, for example, flash into play Laboratory Maniac, that isn't gonna help them, because what you do is, in response, before the Laboratory Maniac hits battlefield, you just activate Kenrith's ability a million times and put more draw card triggers on the stack, killing that player. So they are gonna deck themselves before Laboratory Maniac hits play. Here is the thing though. Angel's Grace has split second. That means that you can't actually put more card draw triggers on the stack if this spell is on the stack. That means that they can actually make themselves immortal, and now they have their entire deck in their hand. I don't think this is gonna save them though, because unless they can win on the spot, I don't know what they can do, because they are gonna die at the moment this turn shift ends, because then you just put a million new card draw triggers on the stack when this effect no longer is in existence. But I want to mention that this is actually not a big problem. What you do first is that you draw your entire deck yourself, or you don't need to draw your entire deck, you just need to draw enough until you find Silence, and then you cast Silence, and that means they aren't allowed to actually cast Angel's Grace. It's time to talk about the last ability, number 5, where we reanimate creature cards from our graveyard and put them directly into play. That is good. That is 1 more mana compared to drawing a card. However, it is usually better to draw a card compared to reanimating a creature. Also, in the beginning of the game, you don't really have anything to reanimate, so we rather draw a card. So the card drawing ability is way stronger. But in some situations later in the game, reanimating a creature is gonna be way stronger compared to drawing a card. I actually think the Return King is gonna be a great reanimator commander, because if you have a bunch of creatures in play and you reanimate Rasaket, you can sacrifice those creatures to assemble a random whatever infinite mana combo way, like Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal. You could also reanimate Tide Spout Tyrant. If you have a bunch of zero costing mana rocks, you can bounce those zero costing mana rocks up and down and generate infinite mana that way. And if your way to reanimate these creatures fails, the Return King can do it for 5 mana from the command zone. So is Kenrith the new Thrasios? Is he just better than Thrasios? No, I don't think so, because of this. Tymna. Now Thrasios isn't just a card drawing commander, he is a partner commander, and that is really strong. And Thrasios costs 2 mana. Kenrith costs 5 mana. That's a huge difference. you can't reliably say that you will always have Kenrith in action and play, because he could get counterspelled, killed, etc, etc, and suddenly after he has died 2 times, he costs 9 mana. If Thrasios has died 2 times, he costs 6 mana. That's a huge difference. You could view it like this. For 2 and 3, a total of 5 mana, you get Thrasios and Tymna, 2 card drawing commanders. For 5 mana, you get a Kenrith that has a weaker card drawing function than Thrasios. Now there is a tiny bit of an upside with the mono white king compared to the TNT, and that's the color identity of red. In general, the more access you have to color identities, the better deck you can assemble. And here is a Flash Hulk combo package that TNT can't play, but they probably wanna play. So this is the Temur Infinite Mana Hulk package. You begin with casting Flash, revealing Hulk, you get a Hulk trigger, and that's all you need. You're gonna find Vegan Graph Mage for free, Incubation Druid for 2, and Torch Courier for 1. You begin by sacrificing Torch Courier to give Vegan Graph Mage haste. Now, Kenrith can actually give haste. So if you want to build a more grindier, slower Hulk package, you cut this thing, and you can only win if you resolve this in an opponent's end step, and you put this into play during opponent's turn, and then you take your turn, and this is no longer suffering from summoning sickness. Or you win when you have your commander in play, and you pay blue and red for the commander's activated ability and generic of 1, and then you win the game on the spot, and you don't have Torch Courier inside your deck. In this combo package, Torch Courier is probably the only bad card. Vegan Graph Mage is a little bit, probably not that good. But after you've given this creature haste, that is key, you will have a trigger to move a +1/+1 counter from this creature to this creature. That's a May effect you can do, but you want to do it. Now, when this has a +1/+1 counter on it, it will have an upgraded ability to tap for 3 mana. Now, for only 2 mana, you can untap this creature, giving you infinite mana. And with infinite mana, if you cast this turn 1, you will cast your commander, and you will draw until you have silence, you cast silence, and then you will basically just deck your opponents. So as a final verdict for this king is that I actually think he's great. I don't think he's on top of the hill. I don't think he is the best commander we have, but he's definitely someone that can duke around among the top. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, consider sharing my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link down below will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.